Hello and welcome to H2O Global News' stream series. My name is Natasha and I am one of the writers here at H2O Global News, and I'm joined today by Beth, the President and CEO at Boeh Agency. Today we'll be exploring why strategy is the cornerstone of effective marketing and how tools like strategy sessions, brand audits and marketing plans can provide a really strong foundation for success. Hi Beth, thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Natasha. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. We'll just dive straight into the questions. Could you just start off by telling us a bit about Boeh Agency and the work that you do there?
Sure, I would love to. Thanks again for having me. Boeh Agency is a full-service marketing and PR agency, and we work exclusively in the water sector. That's what really sets us apart. Our clients are water tech innovators. We work with utilities and organizations all protecting, treating, moving, or delivering clean water. That's one water. So clean water means drinking water and stormwater and wastewater, anything to do with water. We have deep understanding of this sector because it's all we do for the last 15 years or so. I've been doing it for much longer, and so has my team. So we have a deep sector fluency and integrated services. So we don't just do marketing, really. We build strategies that help move brands forward.
It's just nice to have that overview and to hear about all of the work that you're doing. Okay, so let's move on to talking more specifically about strategy. Why do you believe that strategy is such a vital starting point for any marketing effort?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it comes down to money and ROI, right? So whether you're a small startup or a groundbreaking with like a new technology, a new idea, or you're a global powerhouse with a full portfolio of technologies, strategy as the foundation helps keep marketing tied to your business goals instead of just random tactics. So without it, you're guessing basically, or you're using your instincts instead of like discussing with facts. And so what that comes down to is your ROI. Marketing is an investment, and if you don't lay that foundation first, you will be, really throwing your money to the wind potentially. And I've done it both ways. I've done it, let's just get some tactics out there, and it really just isn't as effective, and you're still spending the money. So much better to start with strategy for financial and effectiveness, right? You want to get that momentum going, and it has to start with strategy.
Yeah, definitely. No, that makes a lot of sense. So how do your strategy sessions and your brand audits help to uncover maybe some of the blind spots or missed opportunities in a client's marketing? And could you maybe just walk us through what typically happens during a strategy session at Boeh Agency?
Absolutely. So because overall, it kind of like forces the client's team to step back and see the big picture instead of we have a trade show in 3 weeks and we need a banner. Like that's like very myopic, and sometimes that happens. But to be able to zoom out and see the big picture and start with the climate and the climate of the business, and what are the goals of the business, not just the marketing goals. So the walking you through it's not like we call it a strategy session, but it's really a lot more than just a session like we're having here. We will do a real deep dive, talk with leaders across sales, product marketing, executives, investors, depending. None of them are the same, honestly. But different voices kind of can reveal the hidden gaps and opportunities. And then also sometimes internally clients are not aligned. And so that helps us, like we talk to like a range of people so that we can kind of understand. And sometimes, not always, we help sort of synthesize these different voices to make sure that everybody's telling the same story. Common blind spots are honestly in water, particularly are messaging that's like a little too technical. So that's always needs to be like a balance. It needs to be technical for validity, but it can't be like over the heads of the decision makers, I guess. Misaligned priorities between teams. Like I said, sometimes like sales in a company has a different set of goals or perspectives than the marketing team versus the executive team, et cetera. So misaligned priorities between teams. And then of course, untapped proof points. So like as we go through the strategy, the goal is to surface both the gaps and the underutilized strengths. Sometimes proof points. So if we're developing messaging and plans, we can't just, when clients are just going to say things that aren't necessarily credible. So like that's a lot of opportunity that we build with our clients, is to not just say something, but identify facts and proof points to support it. So as far as like walking through it, I got ahead of myself there, but um it's not surface level. Like, it's not just a session, it's kind of that collaborative deep dive. We always start with the business goals, understanding growth, sales growth targets, revenue targets. Are there any launches coming up? What are the challenges facing the team right now, whether it's competitive pressures or um resources or whatever might be happening in the market. And then we listen really carefully to how they talk about themselves versus what their customers might actually care about. Sometimes people get, again, like a little bit myopic. Teams get involved in what they think the market needs without actually listening to the clients, their customers. So we'll talk through that. We bring in perspectives from other departments, like I said, so to sort of expose those inconsistencies or overlooked opportunities. So sales and marketing and executive team. We review their past marketing efforts and PR. We dig into the competitors to see what other people are saying. And then we identify where the brand can kind of like really stand out, like what sets them apart. And that might, there's any number of things. It could be the technology, it could be the service, the team. Maybe they have something really different, and we want to kind of pinpoint what's different about them than everybody else, especially if they have sort of a kind of standard product. What's different? And then the results. So this usually takes like 6 to 8 weeks, maybe, because we do multiple interviews and meetings with our clients, and then we do a lot of background research to understand some of this in context of their audience. And then the result is sort of this roadmap that's been grounded in their business goals, not just marketing trends, not just a list of tactics, because we all know what the tactics are, but they're not the same. This is why it's important to start with strategies, because we don't have a checklist of like, oh, we'll just give them, this is what they need to do. Really needs to have a deep understanding, and then we can provide that roadmap. And that's part of what a strategy session results in.
Fantastic. Thank you. And yeah, I can really imagine how not having that foundation could really impact the clients and the outcomes and the overall success.
It's true. We've done it. I have done it where clients were really sure that they just needed a tactic, whether it was collateral or a website in the past. And really that is spending a lot of money on definitely not the right results. So we just don't do it that way anymore. We always start with strategy.
Yeah, really important. And in your experience, what are maybe some of the risks of diving into campaigns or content creation without having that solid foundation there?
Yes. Well, it's kind of like, I've never built a house, but I would imagine it would be like building a house without a plan or a blueprint. Like you might be able to kind of put it together, but ultimately the foundation would fail and it would be not successful and start to crash. So you would, how that translate into our water marketing is you'd get campaigns that don't have clear goals. So you would have inconsistent messaging. You might not know if they're successful if you haven't set up a strategy with some clear goals. How will we know what success is? So, you're kind of set up to not be successful if you don't know what that's going to be looking like. And then of course the wasted budget, really it all comes down to that. Marketing money that's not well spent is obviously not what anybody wants. And so other risks is it can become reactive. So if you don't start out with sort of this clear plan of these are our messages and this is what we want to say and this is how it's going to support whatever our growth goals or whatever the goals are, you're really like reacting to things that are happening in the market, whether your competitors are coming out with something you didn't know or any number of reactions instead of it being intentional and you kind of controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
Let's see. Strategy also kind of keeps everything integrated, consistent, and then again, like connects to the outcomes that really actually matter, which are determined at the beginning. Bottom line, the money, investment in money, marketing's investment, it's approached without that foundation. You're just kind of throwing your money into the wind and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. Not a good way to.
And actually, you've already kind of touched on this, but how do you ensure that the client's marketing strategy stays aligned with their overall business goals, like over time as it's changing?
Yes. Okay. That's a great question. So it starts with listening very deeply at the beginning of the engagement, but it's not a like set it and forget it. So we have ongoing engagements. We don't just like do the work and hand it over. We will have like ongoing engagements that would have status calls, regular check-ins. We would be reviewing the results that we kind of set out at the beginning of the strategy. So, 3 months later, 6 months later, because a lot of times a campaign or developing a marketing plan, it's not like you could just do it and then know whether it's successful or not. It takes time. And then more importantly, when the goals shift, which they often do because the market changes or something in the company changes and the business goals shift, we're there to sort of like address that and say, okay, well, this was the tactic that worked with that goal, but now we're going to like shift it a little bit, change the messaging, change the tactics a bit. Really what we do is we have regular status meetings depending on the engagement. Sometimes it's weekly, sometimes it's monthly, just to do a check-in. And one of our key employees, early days, introduced me to something that might have been very agency, and I hadn't heard of it because I didn't come from an agency. I come from water marketing, and she'd start every status call with "state of biz." She called it. Again, this is probably a common agency term that I wasn't as familiar with. So that like sets the tone of the meeting. Of okay, so before we get into all of what we're working on, let's hear what's happening in your company and what's changed perhaps, or what's happening, because there's always, it's depending on the company, obviously different levels of change. So we always check in to make sure the strategy flexes and then everything kind of flows from there. So it's not static. It's not like here's your marketing plan and we'll see you, or we'll do it and it's done. It's an ongoing conversation, so that making sure the marketing is driving the outcomes.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense because, yes, the real world is, I guess, always changing. You never know what's going to happen. And then finally, for those who are maybe feeling just a bit overwhelmed about where to start, where to begin, how could a marketing plan provide clarity and a bit of momentum for them to start?
Absolutely. So especially for businesses that feel stuck in their, like, they know what their goals are, but they don't know how to get there. Having a plan really kind of cuts through that bottleneck. I mean, we've worked with clients that have known that they had a goal, they had plans, and it was years before they could kind of get unstuck, whether the bottleneck is their own internal resources or, I mean, there's any number of reasons, but I feel like there's a lot of potential bottlenecks in marketing. So the marketing plan kind of breaks through that and provides the clarity, like you said, and momentum to kind of like get towards those goals. So it's a roadmap, defining who you're going to talk to, what you're going to say, and how you're going to reach them. It replaces the guesswork, well, I think we just need, a case study, which you probably do, but this way you're like really aligning it with the business's larger goals. And our plans tie directly back to business goals. That's another thing we always start with at the strategy session is, what are your business goals is more important than what are your marketing goals, so that each tactic has a purpose and helps build that momentum.
That's all my questions that I have. But yeah, thank you very much for joining me today, Beth. And it was just really nice to hear more about your work and why strategy is so important for proper and effective marketing. So thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been a joy. Our work really is, I would say, really passion driven. It's even a little bit more about marketing. We really are committed to amplifying the solutions that protect, treat, and deliver clean water. So that's what drives our team, and it's the impact we try for with every client.
That's really lovely to hear. Thank you very much for sharing it with us.